Hello and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We're two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time. Today, we'll be giving you a look into who we are and why we decided to start this podcast.
So stick around to listen to how we didn't like each other when we first met, how we took very different career paths to the same destination, and how the idea for this podcast came to us in a dream. Here we go. Time to rewind and set the scene. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to start. It's so strange talking about this kind of stuff, but let's hope it's interesting enough that, people will enjoy listening. So
maybe I'll learn something, eh?
Yeah, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. So I am Alba. And I was born in Malaga in 1998, the best year ever.
I agree.
Yes, my parents were actually the first foreigners to ever arrive in our little village that we both grew up in. I've lived there all my life. And they moved there about 40 years ago. So me and my sister, we were born there by far. And I grew up on a farm. My parents, they bought a bit of land and built everything on that bit of land. So I grew up there. We had loads of animals. My mom, I will go into, she works with horses. So we had horses, we had cats, we had dogs, we had pigs, chickens, the whole lot. And because of that, I really spent a lot of time alone as a kid, which I loved. And by alone, I mean alone with the animals. I did not spend time alone ever, but I was always with my animals and making up my stories in my mind, my weird and wonderful stories. And because of that, today I really notice how much I crave alone time when I've been around people for a while. I need that to recharge. So my mom was a horsemanship educator. I had to ask her, I was like, if I talk about what you do, what exactly would you want me to say? Because I normally just she does horses. But depending on who I'm talking to, it'll be like she's a horse riding teacher or she trains horses or whatever. And she said, I'm going to make up a title. I was like, I love it. So she's a horsemanship educator. And because of growing up with horses, I was basically born on a horse. My mom loves to say to people because she up until 2 weeks before I was born was riding horses. She was actually going through a fence when she went into labor with me. And then 3 weeks after I was born, she put me in a carrier,
a little
rucksack.
Kangaroo
thing,
pouch,
and started riding again. So I was basically born on a horse and spent all my time riding as a child. It was actually funny. We have a question later on, and I saw that you'd put that you did horse riding, and I was like, I didn't even think about writing that down because it was
so part of your personality,
literally. And basically from that, it's the biggest takeaway from that is staying grounded and assessing how you're feeling. You can't lie to a horse. So if you're stressed out and you go up to the horse and you're like, I'm fine, the horse is just going to run away. They're like, nope, don't want that energy around me. So that's interesting to learn to check yourself. Definitely learned that from horses. And then my dad, very practical person and always wanted to make sure that I was prepared for life. And this meant knowing how to, our favorite thing to do would be on Sundays, we would go for walks and gather asparagus. And then we would make a fire and cook it. And that would be our breakfast. So he was like, you have to know how to survive. You have to know how to do these basic things.
You'll survive anywhere there's asparagus.
Anywhere there's asparagus, I'm covered asparagus. And that went on to when I turned 16, he was like, 2 years until you're going to learn how to drive, but you will learn how to change a tire. You will be that person. You will be the one to get a motorbike license because I don't want you getting in the back of a boy's motorbike. And then even up until last year, he was teaching me how to do things like electrical circuits in houses. So he was like, you will be able to survive in this world without a man, basically. And yeah, that's pretty much a little sum up about me and my background. How about you?
Ooh, okay. So, I was born in England, so I'm English. I'm also half Irish. So by the age of 8, I had already lived in 3 countries. I spent a couple years in Ireland living in northern Dublin when I was very young, and then at the age of like 7.5, my family moved to Spain. So we moved to southern Spain, which is where Alba's side of the story begins. So yeah, I was a pretty extroverted kid. In general, I did lots of activities. I did ballet, gymnastics from a very young age. So yeah, when I moved to Spain, I suddenly had to learn a new language. As a kid, it comes pretty quick, but I remember when
Still.
when I first got to Spain, I remember I moved in, and I crossed a kid in the street who was about my age, and she asked me my name in Spanish, and I'd learned a little bit of Spanish before I came, but I replied to her in Irish, in Gaelic, because that's what I'd been learning at school in Ireland. And then I realized the mistake I'd made, and I ran upstairs and I started crying,
Oh
and I didn't go
no.
back. And so yeah, it was. I remember it not being easy.
I bet you
so
left that girl absolutely
Yeah.
dumbfounded. She was probably like, what language was that?
Yeah, she was like,
What?
"Is that human? Is that?"
Literally.
I still know that girl. Anyway, so yeah, it was a tough few weeks, I think, when I first went into this new school, and then I slowly. I mean, no, I pretty quickly caught on, and I could already start to communicate in a short amount of time. So I stopped being sad, let's say. I kind of started to feel like I was fitting in, but I suddenly had a lot more shyness. I was a lot shyer person. I remember being able to feel the difference big time between how I was with other Spanish kids and how I was with other English kids. So that's something that evolved over the next few years. And then I began horse riding. I mean, this kind of comes after we meet. So maybe we could tell the story of how we met.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I can go into what follows.
So we met when we were probably around like 8, 9, something like that, because we were in the same class at primary school. So what was it, like year 3?
It was year 5.
5. Wow. Really?
Yeah, it was 50. So for anybody in non-Spanish culture, because they're all very different systems,
Yeah.
so like 8 or 9 years old, I think.
Yeah. And it's quite funny because we have such different like perspectives of this, because I I like I mentioned before, my parents were the first foreigners in their village, and it was like I wasn't ever I don't know if I should say this now or leave it till later. My fun fact.
Oh, give it to us. Give us your
Shall I
fun
give it
fact,
to you?
Bean.
So I didn't speak English until age 6. I could understand it perfectly, but in my little 6-year-old brain, the
Little
only
bilingual
people,
brain.
yeah, the only weird people who spoke English were my parents. That's it. So they would speak to me in English, and I'd be like, they're so, they can only speak English, bless them. So I would always answer in Spanish. And because of that, I never felt like different in a group of Spanish kids. Like I just felt like everybody just accepted me as the only foreigner, but it wasn't like I just felt like one more of the Spanish kids. And that was very much like my identity. I was just one more in the class of Spanish children. And before, I think it might have been even the same year you came, but a bit earlier, or at the end of the year before, like just before Saoirse arrived, another girl who was, I think, just English, possibly, came. And she, I think, had no Spanish. And the teachers were like, oh, Alba, you can like speak to her in English and, help her integrate. And I was like, no. No, again, being my 8-year-old brain, I was like, no, because then, what if the other kids, everyone thinks she's weird because she doesn't speak Spanish. So if I start speaking English to her, which up until a year ago, I'd only just started speaking, they're going to think I'm weird too. So no, like, don't. And I felt really pressured by the teachers. And I said this to my parents, like, they're trying to make me be friends with this girl who I don't want to be friends with. And it was like weird. And then after that, like just after that, Saoirse came and was already like, don't even look at her. Because if I look at her, then the teachers are going to be like, oh, you can also speak to her. And I was like, nope. Just nope.
Yeah, I remember when I got there and the teacher said to me, so there are two people that speak English. There's this one, and then there's this girl smiling at me. Hi, ready for a new friend. And then there's this one, and the look you gave me.
I was like, don't come near me.
And I can remember maybe not that particular face of that particular moment, but I know which face you pulled because I knew you pretty well after that. I could draw the kind of small, polite smile, but
because I was a teacher's pet, I will admit that. So I didn't want to say no to the teachers either, so I wasn't like, they were like, oh, this lovely girl, and I was like,
so yeah, that was the first couple weeks of our non-friendship. So I obviously hung out with this other person that I was able to speak to because at that point I didn't speak barely any Spanish. And I remember, honestly don't really remember how we did start hanging out, but I just know that I thought you were really cool. Yeah. And I wanted to be friends with you. And I remember this other English speaking girl that I was hanging out with. One day she was like, I think I had a packet of Smarties. I don't know why that's part of my memory, but I definitely had a packet of Smarties. And she, for some reason, she made me choose. She said, you can either be my friend or her friend. And I looked at her and I went, I want to be her friend.
And so I honestly don't know. I don't remember. Like for me, I remember like that when you like first arrived and I was like, no, stay away. And then I just like in my mind, then the next thing is we're best friends. Like I don't remember what happened to like, and because I remember at that time I had a friend that was like my best friend up until that point. And I don't know if we fell out. I don't know if we fell out or because we were still friends after that, but it just kind of like dwindled from best friend status to friend status.
Yeah.
And I think we were just, but maybe that happened because we got close. I honestly don't remember. Basically, I couldn't help falling in love with Saoirse. It just, as much as my little
I charmed her.
Yeah.
I charmed her. But exactly. Now that I think back to it, maybe we had some like common references, but I can't imagine that be things that we speak about when we're 8 years old. Like, oh, do your parents drink tea too?
Yes.
We say now. But anyway, we ended up becoming best friends pretty quickly. And then we did everything together.
Like spending every second of every day
15 years, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Which leads us to nicknames. I love that you were like, I so feel like our nicknames more than our real names. Like as a 100%.
Duo. It feels, yeah. So it feels so weird for me to call you Alba. So Alba is her name.
Yeah.
For anybody new.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have always,
easiest name on the planet.
Oh yeah, Saoirse. We could get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. Yeah. But we've always called each other, or at least I've always called you Bean, which is just a nickname you've had forever. And it's what your parents would call you. So I caught on to that pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a name that literally, so I'm the oldest between me and my sister. And when I was born, they were like, oh my God, she's so little. She looks like a little bean. And it just kind of stuck from there. And there's no other real reason. I've just always been Bean. And the first person outside of my family to call me that I remember, like, I don't know if any close friends of my parents maybe called me. I don't know. But that I remember anybody except my like immediate family calling me that was Saoirse. And I actually asked my mum, I was like, I don't know if we should talk about this in the podcast or not. And my mum was like, but only, it's only just us that call you. I was like, yeah, I know, that's why it's weird. But yeah, it's how you've always called me. So it like doesn't feel weird to have that on the podcast, I think.
Yeah. And like I never call you Alba. I always call you Bean.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to do it by mistake, even if I try and call you Alba. So
Yeah.
we might as well,
Might as well start with everything out in the open.
So Alba is Bean.
Yeah, and Saoirse's always been Chon.
So the story begins. When I first arrived in Spain.
Yeah, because of your wonderful name.
Because of my wonderful name, I went to the classroom for the first time, and the teacher introduced me. Spanish teacher, as in not a teacher of Spanish language, but Spanish person.
Yeah.
And the pronunciation of Saoirse in the Spanish language is inexistent. It's impossible.
Basically, in Spanish, you read as you see words, like letters. So your name would be Saoirse to a Spanish person. And he tried. He did try. But instead of Saoirse, it was, here's Seicha. Your new classmate, Seicha.
So somebody piped up, ¿Qué? Salchicha? Which, for a translation, it means, what? Sausage? So I quickly became sausage.
Did you know that salchicha meant sausage in that moment?
No.
No.
Probably not. Probably was unaware, although I do remember cringing a bit, not being very happy. So maybe I didn't know what it meant, but maybe I did know that it wasn't something that I particularly wanted to be called.
The fact that the whole class laughed probably gave you a good inkling that it wasn't necessarily good.
Yeah. So then that stuck for a couple of... It didn't stick too long at school, luckily.
No.
They quickly started calling me by my second name, which is Catherine. But
in
it
their own
stuck with
Spanish
Alba's
way
dad.
as well, yeah. He's the real reason, because this was actually really funny. When I was talking to my mom about it, she was like, but like everyone calls Saoirse Chon, no? Isn't that what people at school, like everyone calls her Chon because they can't say Saoirse? I was like, no, they call her Catherine because they can't say Saoirse. No one calls her Chon unless apart from our family. Like our family is the only group of people that call her Chon. That's thanks to my dad.
So, but he started saying salchicha.
Because he found it hilarious.
That turned into salchichon, which is another type of salchicha. It means salami. And then that turned into chon.
Chon,
and I have been chon ever since.
Yeah. So
only for Alba though.
Yeah. Only for me and my family. Like literally, my parents will ask me, like, "How's Chon getting on?" And it's just you're just Bean and Chon.
So we are Bean and Chon. We feel a lot more Bean and Chon than we feel Saoirse and Alba or Alba and Saoirse.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we will try to keep to Alba and Saoirse, but you probably will hear many Bean and Chons.
So yeah, that's the story of our friendship. And then we became one human being, basically, inseparable. We did everything together. Mm-hmm. Our main life was dancing and horse riding. Yeah. So horse riding was something that I had dreamed of since I was a kid, basically. Mm-hmm. Since I could remember, it was my dream. Whenever somebody would bring me a birthday cake and say, make a wish, I would wish that I wanted to learn to ride horses. Oh. And then I happened to encounter this brilliant human being who quickly became my best friend. And I remember being invited to her house for the first time. And I got there and it was heaven. Because she lived on a farm, basically, with loads of horses and a horsemanship educator as a mother. So we would ride, we would take lessons. We would also just ride around on ponies, bareback, do some camping. Yes. Oh, we had a great time.
Oh, we had so many stories of horse related stories. We also did pony club, which was fun with other kids. Yeah. But we were always like the pros inside a pony club.
Yeah. The mischievous. Mm-hmm. We don't really need to be here kind of ones, you know. Yeah. We'll go off and do our own thing.
Yeah, where we used to play saddle club.
Yeah.
Great fun. such an amazing childhood. Like, it's one of those things that you like don't realize until like you look back on and you're like, thank goodness. Like, just the amount of time outside playing with horses. I mean, how many kids' dreams? Like, I was telling someone the other day that I grew up on a horse farm, and they were like, oh, you must have felt so lucky. And I was like, not really, because that's all I knew, you know?
Yeah.
But like now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky. Craziness.
I'm just gonna go turn on my light. Sorry.
Okay. So we've got a few like quick fire childhood questions here.
Oh, let's do it.
Like questions about childhood. So like, shall we do it? Should we answer?
Yeah. So first question, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be when I grew up? I wanted to be a vet up until age 16, basically because I lived on a farm. And whenever an animal was in pain, I was like, I want to help them. So yeah, that was the dream for a very long time. What about you?
Well, it depends on what age. So when I was really, really young, my answers were I wanted to be an artist or an inventor. So they were my answers.
They're such kid answers. An inventor. Yeah. I love it.
And then when I started kind of actually thinking of what I wanted to do as a job when I was a little bit older, I wanted to be a mathematician for a very long time. I was really into maths. So yeah, that's funny because
that was something I considered as well. I was like, maybe maths. Maybe you can just study maths. I like maths. Can we make a career out of this?
And then you realize what that means when it comes to...
No. Thank you, but no.
So yeah, my favorite subjects at school were definitely maths, science, and art. Yeah, we were very artsy kids as well. We were known as the creatives. We would win all of the photo competitions and all of this business. So art was
you won
was
the competition to make the was it just the best or the like most creative bookmark?
I did, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And my favorite subjects are exactly the same because we are exactly the same person. Because, yeah, I've also got maths, science, and art. And it's so funny. Like, it's like we've both put the exact same way as well. We haven't even like specified what kind of science. We haven't even specified what kind of art. Just in general, all of it.
Math, science, and art. So, yeah, it gives you an idea of the kind of people we were.
Yeah, it's all of it. Throw it all my way. I love it.
What was your favorite color?
Blue. Always blue.
Yeah, red for me.
Is it still your favorite color?
I honestly don't know if red was ever my favorite color. I feel like red was just my answer to the what's your favorite color question. I don't know what my favorite color is now, honestly.
Yeah. Which is so interesting. Like you're saying that like as a kid, favorite color, but I feel like that was so many things. Like you would just make your mind up of something and it would be like, this is it. You know, this is whatever.
That's my answer.
This is going to be my answer. Absolutely.
I'm not reconsidering. And that's part of my identity now. My favorite color is red.
Yeah.
That is my answer to this question. Yeah. I honestly think that was probably my answer mainly because it was my dad's answer.
Oh, really?
Red, I remember red being my dad's favorite color, or I probably asked him once and he said red. I think that was the moment I decided that I wanted my favorite color to be red. But I did really like the color red.
Yeah.
I would never wear it though.
Yeah, true. And your room had a lot of green.
Yeah, but that wasn't my choice.
That wasn't your choice.
I painted it white as soon as I could.
Yeah, well, mine's always been blue and it still kind of is. I think if I had to choose a color, which is the color that I kind of like whenever I have to decorate like a space or anything, it always ends up being this like bluey green, like very light, almost like a mixture between blue, green and gray, I would say. Like,
I feel like this is a question that you ask yourself, like not on a regular basis, but because you work with color, you work with, I mean, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that.
You are a creative professionally. So I imagine you do see yourself gravitating towards certain colors and you see that in real life. Whereas it's not really something that I am, except for the colors that I choose to wear or the colors that I choose for my spaces, which are generally pretty neutral colors. So anyway.
Anyway, yes. Not what this is about. Let's carry on.
This is quick fire, Bean.
Yeah. Go to comfort food.
Tomato soup.
Lasagna.
Favorite hobbies?
dancing, violin, and I realized afterwards that I hadn't added horse riding, but of course, horse riding.
So for me, it was dancing, riding, and singing.
Yeah. Guilty pleasure TV show.
Dance moms.
For me, Friends. Friends.
It's a classic.
It's a classic,
It's
and my
followed us
parents
through life.
loved it. So,
Oh, my parents didn't, but I did. But I watched it later on in life. I didn't watch it when I was a kid because my parents, I remember my mum being like, oh, it's silly humor or something like that. Although I think I asked her later on, like relatively recently, and she didn't recall that at all. So I might have just made it up.
No, but it is funny, the things that parents tell us as children that then they have no memory of. Like that that's happened a few times with I've been like, oh, remember you told me this when I was 10, and they were like, did I?
No. Because they just answer a question, and when you're a kid, it's like, that's the truth forever.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Exactly. I keep hitting something that's making a weird noise, I hope.
I can hear that.
Anyway, so that was a little bit extra about us, but moving swiftly on because we could chat forever.
Ever.
Moving on to a little bit more how we ended up kind of choosing where we are today. Because as I mentioned before, I wanted to be a vet until I was age 16. And I remember the day I decided that's not what I was going to do, it was actually like the end of the world. It was like, now what? Like, you know, when you have like such a clear goal, and like you were saying about the colors, like it's just like, I don't have to think about that anymore. Like that's just my answer. I realized that I wasn't going to be a vet because I felt like I was too sensitive, because I was going on basically internships. At the time, it was just like, I don't even know. I was just spending time with our various vets that we had for all the animals. And I realized that way too sensitive. I was basically getting home and crying every day because all the amount of animals that we had to put down. And I was like, I cannot do this for a living. And then that's when I was like, I'm going to try and like figure something out, but I had no direction. Like I'd been so hell-bent on vet up until that age. I was like, no idea. I didn't even know if to go down science route or art route. Like it was like, I'd always kind of done more like pure sciences at school, but I knew I enjoyed doing so many artsy things too. So it was like, we did dancing for a long time, and I was like, maybe I could be a dancer. Like, what can I do? And it was by sheer luck, coincidence, I don't know, that I discovered that audiovisual communication was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the UK, they call it media studies normally, but audiovisual communication sounds so much nicer and descriptive. And I feel like up until that point, up until I found out that was a thing that you could actually go and study, I feel like we were very informed on all the things that we could do to do with like science things, or maybe just more traditional like roles. Like, I don't know if you felt this too, but we were in quite a small school in a small
100%.
town.
Yeah.
And the guidance in air quotes that we got was like, you can be a teacher, a doctor, lawyer. Like it was just typical things, you know? So I loved recording everything and anything. Like whenever we would do anything, whenever go on like a trip with my parents, I would record it and then edit it into a little video. But the reason audiovisual communication appealed to me so much was that I didn't have to make such a specific decision, because audiovisual communication covered everything from journalism to photography to video to graphic design to, inside of all of those things, director, script writer, anything. Like we did a little bit of everything, and then you specialized later on. And I was like, this is perfect, because I know I like this world, but I haven't explored it enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to go and study, you know, this one really specific thing. I wasn't sure. So like when I found out audiovisual communication, I could study this and call it a degree and go to university, I was like, yes.
And can I say, I think there's something here that that speaks a lot about your personality and the kind of person you are. You chose to go for this degree, And you had to, because we all work towards final exams at the end of our baccalaureate.
Yeah.
And depending on what you want to do, what you want to do at university, you choose different subjects. And these are subjects you prepare them for 2 years at school, right? And we're maybe a month before these exams, 2 months,
Literally.
less.
I remember it being the final weeks. Like it was in the last month. I don't know what point in that month, but it was at the end.
So you figure out that audiovisual communication is what you want to do, and you're super happy about it. You had to relearn the maths, because basically there's 2 different types of maths that you can learn at school. You can learn scientific maths, or you can learn, what's it called?
I think it's statistical math, maybe, because it's like that's mainly what it is. Yeah,
it's like maths that are more oriented to different degrees that are either more artsy or more kind of political. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to do things like this, then you learn a different type of math that's not so scientific, but it's very different. So Alba went and she studied this on her own at the age of 17.
17,
You trained for this exam on your own on a subject that people have been working on for 2 years with teachers at school. And you went and did that exam. I think that's pretty impressive, honestly.
And I mean, I was terrified because it's a really weird system. I think it's actually different now. But basically, we could get a maximum of 14 points or 12 points. 14 points. And because of me doing the switch up last minute, the maximum that I could get was a 12, which just automatically put me at a disadvantage to get into universities that I wanted to get into, which actually led to me not getting into the university that I wanted to get into, because if not, we would have gone to the university in the same city. And I ended up staying in Malaga just because it actually ended up being a better course, just that the one in Granada was I think they just had less spaces or something. I think they only had 80, whereas in Malaga they had 180. So it really did like change quite a few things. But crazy like last minute decision, but amazing decision. And it was there where I kind of discovered graphic design, because I'd always thought all that kind of stuff was way too technical for me. So graphic design, and inside of that, branding, which is what led me to my master's in branding. But we will get into that later on. Saoirse?
So I think this is a really beautiful part of our story and the backgrounds we have and the paths we followed, because at that point in time when we were choosing what we wanted to do at university, we were both pretty sure we wanted to go to university.
Which is interesting because I don't think either of our parents went to university. Nope. So it was quite interesting how we were so like set on it, when I don't think, at least from my side, there was no pressure to.
Same. There was no pressure from my parents.
Yeah.
But we were both let's say straight A students. I mean, not necessarily straight A, but we were into school, and we got good grades.
We loved it.
We knew that was the way that we're expected to go. And we were both into the idea of learning more about things. So I was in a very, very similar situation. We were both into super artsy things, also into science. So I remember looking up different options. I remember looking up like a theatre school in Britain or something like that, to maybe learn acting. It was going through all the possibilities. It was really hard, and I chose to go towards a sciencey route. My logic was, I would love to do both. I think I'd like to learn. I want to go to university to learn science, something in science, and then it would be relatively easier to fall back on something artsy and learn that later in life than the other way around. So that was basically my logic in my choice. So I first thought I wanted to do physics. That was, I set myself on physics. I liked physics at school. And then in a very similar way, not quite so intense as yours, after taking this exam that we take, and I started putting in my list of the universities I wanted to go to and the degrees I wanted to do, physics was at the top. And then I discovered chemical engineering. when you're going through lists of these
Yeah.
little pamphlets that you're given and everything. And I thought that was really interesting. I really liked the idea of it being applied. So physics is very theoretical, a lot like maths. Physics and maths are very theoretical subjects and very theoretical degrees. And whereas an engineering degree was a lot more applied, you're a lot more likely to see what you're working on. And I like the idea of that. So because of how the system works, I ended up changing last minute physics for chemical engineering. I'd already gotten into physics, so then I had to like give that place up. So then I was put at the bottom of the list, and
I remember that.
it was so stressful.
It basically
was
wasn't it that you were only going to get in if there was like 100 places, if not 100 people applied or something like that. Something crazy like that. I remember that was it. So stressful.
It was terrible because I actually got in the first time, and then when I got my place into physics, I was kicked out, and then I realized no, I actually want to do that one now. I remember writing an email to the government.
And you got such a good, like you would have 100% have gotten in like without a doubt into chemical engineering because you got such a good mark. And then
so yeah, it was an exciting time. But luckily I ended up getting a place because not like the places weren't filled up. So I got into the school that I wanted to get into in Granada, so the province next to Malaga, in chemical engineering. And I started a week late because of how the lists worked. So I rushed to move to Granada, and then I had the most amazing time. So I've never regretted my decision. And yeah, so we've both come from very similar places, very similar passions, I would say. Chose very different paths. I'd say opposite paths. And have now ended up in a very similar situation, which we'll get into. But I think there's a real beauty in that. And that's why it's so fun to talk about everything work-wise with you, because we've come from a very similar place and have very different experiences.
Absolutely. And it's almost like we can like live vicariously through each other of like the path not taken. Like we're both so happy with the path we did take, but then it's like cool to like see like the other one. Like,
100%. I love
feel
it.
like if we'd done it the other way around, we still would have been successful and like loved it. But it's like, it's so cool. It's so cool. I love it.
So yeah. And maybe you could tell us a little bit now in what follows your degree, what happened afterwards.
So I like Saoirse, but we kind of had inside of uni, I think, is where our path started to be slightly different. And I graduated in theory in the year of 2020, so in June of 2020, which meant that my last term was all online. It means that I didn't get a graduation, and I actually had a job lined up in the States that I was going to go work for 3 months and then travel around for a month. That didn't happen. And at that time, I was living in an apartment in Malaga, and I felt so lost because I have always been such an organized plan it all kind of person. So then my plans like just disintegrated basically, as did loads of other people. And I was in this situation where my parents said to me, "We have helped you out throughout uni. You're no longer studying. You now have to decide whether you find a job and pay for your flat in Malaga, or you come back home. You know, we're not paying for your flat anymore." And I was like, I will. I will find a way to pay my flat in Malaga. I don't want to go back home. I'm not ready. And at this about a month before, I had found this it was educational course. It was at the same level as a master's. They didn't call it a master's, but it was the same kind of level. And they had in it a program that was specific for branding. My plan had always been, as soon as I finish uni, I'm going to get a job with someone to learn, because throughout uni I did quite a few internships that I really enjoyed, and I did enjoy working for somebody else. I did want to learn from people, learn about, because I was very aware because of these internships that yes, I learned a lot at uni, but when it came to the practice, I knew shockingly little. Like I walked in so confident to my first internship, and then halfway through the first day, I burst into tears and ran into the bathroom because I was like, I know nothing. They haven't prepared me. So, both my parents, entrepreneurs. So I knew that I did want to start my own business at some point, but I wasn't, my plan was to like for 5, 7 years, work for someone else. If I needed to do a master's, if it, if it was something that was necessary for a job, if it was something that I was specifically interested in, whatever. Because of COVID, the COVID we all know.
The great.
Yes. I ended up being catapulted into basically 7 years down the line, where I started my own business as I was studying a master's. I was very fortunate that my grandparents had left me a bit of money, and that is how I could pay for my master's while I was trying to find work at the same time. If not, that wouldn't have been an option. And it was because of this master's that it helped my business take off because I met so many wonderful people there. We are going to be doing an episode about networking, so I will go deeper into it then. But basically, they had lots of different courses, and they encouraged, the amazing thing about them was that they were an online academy before COVID. So they were really well adapted, and we could meet loads of people. So they really encouraged these like big meetup events online for the different courses to meet and help each other. So it was here that I found my first clients. I was charging nothing because I felt so inexperienced. I felt so out of place, but that's how I went building it up. So I started my own studio. I called it just Alba, and I was doing everything and anything that I learned at uni that I could make money from. I was like, you want me to like anything, create an email template for you, I'll do it. Make that PowerPoint look pretty, I'll do it. You want me to make a website in somewhere that I've never used or built a website before, I'll do it. Like anything you say that you'll pay me for, I'll figure out a way to do it. And I learned so much that first year. It's actually insane. And yeah, that's led me to where I am today, where I'm not just Alba Harden. And it's now evolved from Alba Harden branding studio to Costa Studio. And I am a lot more focused, doing a lot more what I want to do, rather than just anything. But yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time for sure.
I've actually prepared a couple questions that I wanted to ask you as you spoke. I won't ask too many because I've prepared quite a lot and I don't want it to get too long. But one of the things that I'm always really curious about in what you do and how it's so different from what I do is maybe less so now. It's becoming a bit more practical, but you work in creativity. Your job is to be creative and to come up with ideas and make things beautiful. And how, I don't even know how to formulate the question. How is it to work in creativity? How do you constantly find that inspiration? I think it must be exhausting because you're constantly having to be imaginative and to create in your mind and find new ideas. Yeah. And I think that's amazing.
I mean, it's definitely hard. Now we're at a really cool stage where we take on less clients. So it's it's less projects in a month. So it can be more focused. To begin with, what I was talking about that first year, that was craziness. It's amazing what you do when you're in survival mode. And when you're like, I will not fail. I love this. I studied this. I will make it work, because so many of people that I went to university with were just getting jobs in something else. So the whole point that I started working for myself is because nobody was hiring someone to, do your social media in the middle of a pandemic. It's just not happening. So many people either just gave up and just went home and were just basically taking a year off, or just, getting whatever job they could and whatever they could. And I was so I even just to prove to myself that I will do this and I won't let these 4 years be a waste, again, in air quotes, it never would have been. But I was I don't want to have to go back home with the tail between my legs. So it's just, I think it was just that survival instinct. And I do love it so much, but it can be so challenging because if you feel one day you feel uninspired for 1,000 different reasons, you can be so hard on yourself and like, I should be able to do this. And I just can't even like imagine anything right now, let alone create this, complete branding for someone.
Yeah, because there's only so many emails you can reply to before you have to actually get something done.
Exactly.
When you're feeling uninspired,
so much admin,
makes your job a lot harder. Yeah.
But that also was a point that as I was doing everything to begin with, then it was like the time that I did get to work on the creative stuff, I did also cherish it. So it is also interesting in that way. But yeah, it can be. And now what I do is I just have to be really like, the days I feel creative, I have to just lean into that regardless of what I had planned.
That's
and then days when I'm feeling less creative, I just don't be hard on myself, and I'm just like, it's fine, it's not going to happen today. I'm going to start doing other things that are more admin, more just boring everyday business things. And if I do get inspired, then I'll lean into it, but forcing myself is just never.
That's super interesting. So you found how you work and how to work that to your advantage.
Yeah, which we'll definitely have to get into in a later episode about creating your schedule when you work for yourself. I am a person that I would love to be like Monday morning at 9 o'clock, like the timetables we get given at school. My dream.
Oh gosh, that takes me back.
Yeah.
Like, your little colored timetables.
Like that is actually like my absolute dream. But that's the last thing I can do. Not just working for myself, but working for myself and what I do. I have to be so flexible, and I've learned to embrace that now and like enjoy it. But it took me a while.
I can imagine. It's a big change.
No, do you want to come up? Come here. Come on.
Hello, Noxie.
Oh. What are you doing?
Noxie, give us a little sniff.
Was this not?
Nope. Did we get a sniff? I think we got a sniff.
That's your job done for the week, Nox. So yeah, anyway, enough about me.
So that's where you're at.
That's where I'm
your
at.
Career.
Yeah. What about you, little miss?
Right. Well, let's go back to let's go back to when I chose my engineering degree. So I chose my degree in chemical engineering, moved to Granada, worked on that. It was really tough. It was a tough degree. I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed learning, but I did a lot of studying, long hours at the library. It was hard work. So in my third year I did pretty well. In my third year of university, I did an Erasmus, which was an exchange year. And I did this exchange year
like
to
a year
France.
abroad.
Yeah. So a year abroad in France, at another engineering school. Slightly different setup, a lot more practical, so a lot more lab work. They had different subjects that weren't quite so theoretical. So we did a bit of management, we did a bit of, actually sport was one of our subjects, and like languages.
Love that.
So
cool.
And I also obviously learned French. So I've lived, that's obviously something we can get into because it's a subject that I'm very passionate about, but learning languages and how they change your perspective on things, because I've lived two very different situations of learning a language. I've learned Spanish when I was a kid, and I learned it very much as a kid would. And I remember feeling a big difference in my personalities that then eventually came together as I moved away and went to university in Spanish. I've started to recognize myself in Spanish as my original personality. But then I obviously learn't French in a very different way, learned it as a third language, as a kind of, not a grown-up, but I wasn't a child anymore. A lot more aware of myself. But it came, and it was an experience that I enjoyed.
Like, more prepared because of this whole Spanish thing? Do you think you were more like, I know I can do this and I'll be okay if like I'm not?
Possibly.
I feel
like I was pretty confident about it.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been a lot, I don't know, I would have found it really daunting because I'd never like learned a language. I mean, in
that you're aware
French
of.
that I'm aware of. French in school, but
Yeah,
doesn't count.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, it never really scared me. I must say, I wonder if that was a bit, more ignorance than anything else, but I wasn't too
Mm,
worried about it. It was well known that people would go and do these years abroad, so
yeah.
I thought, I'll French, Spanish, basically the same thing. I'll learn it
Same
pretty
thing.
quickly. And and yeah, I caught on quite quickly. I caught on enough to be able to follow the work and understand the classes. It was a bit more work at the beginning, so I would get up really, really early in the morning to go over my coursework before going to class, like 5 a.m. To look things up in the
Crazy.
dictionary. And but
Crazy.
I was
As
soon
if
at a
chemical
level.
engineering wasn't hard enough already. Let's go do it in a different language.
Actually, that kind of helped because it's scientific language, so they're all very similar words anyway.
I guess.
But yeah, so I did my year abroad in France, and I really loved, the country and the language, but also how this school taught engineering, and it was a lot more practical, very different, system than the Spanish pure theory. You're on your own, you do your work, you come to the exam. It's 10 times harder than any of the coursework you've done. The French system was very different. It was a lot more, the exams are a lot more like you would expect. So relatively, I'd say easier to pass when you're used to working hard enough for the Spanish system.
Yeah.
But then you had a lot more lab work, a lot more practical subjects that really turn you into a rounded engineer ready for the working world. Anyway, the system I really enjoyed, and so I managed to wiggle my way back to this university as their own student. So I finished my degree in Spain. I got into this kind of double diploma situation where they would accept me doing both, and then I would have my degree and then my double degree and a master's. So I
Like, to this
returned
day, I feel
to.
like I don't fully understand. I remember when that you were going through that, and I was like, I don't no idea what she's chatting about. But
So basically, yeah, they started this double degree, this double diploma, it was called.
was this something that they did like for you, or was it something
No,
that?
it's funny. Yeah, speaking of the network that we're going to talk to in the next episode, it's really funny because the reason I found out about this double diploma that they'd set up was because the teacher that was coming to Spain from the French school to present it to the younger students, because it was targeted at the students at the year below me, asked me to come and join him for the presentation so I could give my opinion on the school.
Wow.
And so I went to this meeting and I stood next to him and I helped present the school, and I spoke very highly of it because I really, really enjoyed it. And at the end of the presentation, I went over to him and I said, "Is this something I could do?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm not sure. It's not really set up for your situation because you've already been." And anyway, I ended up going. I elbowed my way through all of the people that were interested.
I love
And I went back to the French school after finishing my degree in Spain. And I joined this double diploma. So I did another year at the French school. And then I was supposed to go back to Spain to do the first year of masters and then return to France after that. But I had to do a speciality that I had decided I didn't want to do. So at that point, I just wanted to stay at the French school as a student of that school and do a different speciality, which was material science. So I had sent some emails, made a few calls, and I was accepted at this new school as their own student, even though I didn't go through any of the selection processes because I'd come in through this via this double diploma. And then I finished their diploma. So I ended up with my Spanish degree, their engineering diploma, which is like a degree and a master's. And I was specialized in material science, so polymers, particularly biopolymers. So polymers are plastics. And it was very oriented around the sustainable side of things because that's what I chose with the subjects that I went through. So that was my university twisty road to when I finished that. And through that system, I did an internship in London. So I did an internship at a startup as a material scientist.
I forgot about that. Whoa,
So
yeah.
that was before COVID. Was it before COVID? I can't remember. Anyway, it wasn't at COVID time.
I think it was maybe just after, maybe
It might have
21.
been because I
Yeah.
remember lots of the meetings and things were online, so it might have been just after COVID. But that was a really interesting experience because it was a startup that was still in the research stage, but we're already raising funding. And I joined the scientific team, so the research team as a material scientist with nuclear engineers. And it was a very interesting experience. We didn't have a really strong leadership. Anyway, I'm not going to go into details, but I learned a lot in that experience. And I was put up as a representative of the scientific team in this technical company in some really big meetings with big companies that I probably can't mention, names that you would know. I was in suddenly these big meetings after never having been in a meeting before and talking research, this very high-tech development. Anyway, it was a big experience and I learned a lot. I was there for 3 months and then I finished my degree after that. I was offered a job to come back, but I decided not to. And then I applied for an internships. I knew that I wanted to do biopolymers, so sustainable plastics, basically. Sustainable polymers. I don't like the word plastic because we have that connotation, don't we?
Yeah.
But anyway, I knew that I wanted to work with biopolymers. And
we
I
now
basically
all know, as part of this podcast, polymers. New word of the day, guys.
Yeah, there you go. It's a chain of molecules. We could have a whole scientific lesson.
Exactly.
So I basically applied to all of the countries that, all of the companies that worked with biopolymers that were in cool places. And I ended up having to choose between a company in Canada and a company in Switzerland. So I chose the Swiss company. I wanted to go and do an internship in a place that I would be interested in moving to if I were to be offered a job after my internship. And while Canada is a really cool country, which I'd love to visit, I wanted to stay in Europe for living, for life, to stay closer to family, to friends. And Switzerland's a really cool country as well.
Totally.
So yeah, I joined a company that works in sustainable packaging. So compostable packaging. And I've been there now for the past 3 years.
I just saw your LinkedIn post.
Oh, it's been my 3-year anniversary recently.
3-year anniversary. Congrats.
Thanks. So I've been working at this company as innovation project manager, which basically means I'm in charge of anything that's new. So I do a lot of product development. I do a lot of strategic sourcing, which means understanding the products that we sell and that we produce to be able to produce them more efficiently or make them better for the client. So I do a lot of just understanding to the detail what we work with. And then I do some training for the team. And I've also been leading an R&D project with the EPFL, which is the Polytechnical School of Lausanne. Really cool school. So we've been working on an R&D project for the past 3 years. And I'm actually currently in the process of founding a new company with my current boss to commercialize this technology that we've developed. So that's the current status of my career. It's a very exciting time. And that's where I think it's really cool that me and Alba have ended up in very similar situation of entrepreneurship and founding something of your own on these very opposite paths,
ends of the spectrum. Absolutely. And what was it exactly that led you towards
biopolymers?
So don't
polymers.
say plastic.
One of my subjects at university was polymers, so it was a subject that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of kind of formulas, maths. There's a lot of it's really down to earth thing. So basically polymers are chains of molecules, one after the other, repetitively. And there's so much magic in that and yeah, it was a subject that I really enjoyed scientifically learning about. And then I saw the value of it in the world.
How you could apply it.
Exactly. So plastic is obviously this big thing, and it's a subject, and there's lots going on to try and replace plastic or find alternatives. And biopolymers are things that can either be compostable or they can be bio-based, which means they come from nature rather than fossil fuels. And it's a really interesting subject to learn about, but also that I saw real potential in being able to work in something that was impactful. And that was something that really drove me when it came to my career choice, where I wanted to put my energy, to be proud of what I was working on, all of this. So that's, that's what took me to polymers.
Whenever somebody asks me like, so what does Saoirse do? Like, what is she? I'm like, she studied chemical engineering. And they're like, oh, what does she do with that? And I'm like, she's saving the planet.
Oh,
you know. Ask her if you want to know more detail.
That's all you need to know.
I always try and explain it, and people just look at me like.
Yeah, I think my mum gets that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the current situation. That's where we're at.
We have Knox has decided to join us for this part. It's because I've got a big window in front of me.
Maybe Knox can read the questions.
He can't see the window from down there, but he can from up here, and that's what he's looking at. So we have some. Well, first we have a quick Q&A that is just maybe just in case there's any aspects that we kind of did gloss over to do with career. So first one is, did you go to university? We both answered this. So yes, I went to Malaga University.
Yeah. And I went to Granada University and INSA of Rouen in France, which is an engineering school.
Did you ever have a completely unrealistic career aspiration? Example, astronaut, rock star.
So I've answered this artist/inventor. I think they're pretty, I mean, in a way they're realistic, but said like that, I want to be an artist or I want to be an inventor. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. But it's kind of cool because I do consider myself an inventor now. My name will probably be on a patent at some point in the next few months. So I could consider myself an inventor. So that's something I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to be a professional dancer, ? And the question mark is the same as you. It's because it's like, is that, how unrealistic is that? Like, people are professional dancers. Just that when I said it, so many people were like, that's like just not, it's not smart really, I guess. So,
and I think you could totally be a professional dancer if the age where you chose to be, whatever you are today.
I mean, my parents were like so close to allow me to change to a school in Malaga, which was a dance school. So like they were for like helping me make it happen. But yeah, it was like, What is your current job?
So my current job is innovation manager / co-founding. That's what I've put. So both.
I've put branding specialist, and I guess founder of studio as well. Excuse not.
I'd say you're an all-round boss woman.
Boss woman.
Honestly, you're pretty cool. So, what about who do you reckon, or what do you reckon, influenced your career ambitions the most?
I think it was the like complete freedom that my parents gave me, like to like really like, what do you enjoy? Lean into that rather than like what made sense. I remember when I said to them, I'm considering maths. They were like, but do you think that'll make you happy? Or do you just want to do that because you think it's like a safe option? You know, so I would probably say them. They were just like, do whatever you want to do and we'll make it work. Which I think, was
and
a
also
big
they were
thing.
both entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
It kind of opened that world to you. Possibly.
Exactly.
It's funny because I've actually put a really similar answer. So my parents, when I think of it now, when I think back, they were actually both also entrepreneurs. They'd figured out and they'd make money in different ways. And my dad, he owned a company for a while. He owned a company with his brother. And my mum did lots of jobs and she was always working and doing different things. But I don't feel like I was exposed to that very much. They never spoke to me about their jobs, and they definitely never spoke to me about money.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think about these days, because I've had a real hard time having discussions about money, and it was just never something that was spoken about at home.
At my house either, really. Money was just not
It's
a thing.
interesting. It's a big it's a taboo, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, I don't think I was really that felt in contact with an entrepreneurial mindset, but I do think that the what influenced my choice, I wouldn't say I had much of an example around me in general that I thought, oh, I definitely want to go and do that engineering degree. I kind of came to that myself, but my mum would always say to me, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. So just do something,
have
kind
a
of
goal.
prove to yourself that you can get a degree. It doesn't matter what that degree is. So also I felt pretty free to do whatever I wanted. And when I told them what I was going to do, they were both pretty surprised.
They were like, nice,
right,
paid
okay.
off.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. Love to the parents.
So we were both very lucky in that situation. And also we were good, hard workers. So I don't feel they were probably pretty confident that we'd make good choices anyway.
100%. 100%. Did you ever have a childhood business example of lemonade stand, selling friendship bracelets, etc.?
What have you answered?
I've put dance teacher's assistant ? And that's because I feel like we kind of asked for that kind of job. We weren't paid, but it was like, I want to help you and I'm going to, what can I do? And it was kind of like initiative of like, I want to be here. Because I don't think we did ever have anything that was like selling stuff. Not that I can remember. So yeah, I put that, but I guess it's not really.
So yeah, for context, typical. We both did assistant work for our dance teacher, who was
because we were there all the time anyway.
Yeah. And we weren't paid, although she did discount money from our classes. So we kind of did get paid.
That is true.
We were working for something. But so that was a job that we both did when we were pretty young. I've also put that we were paid for dancing a couple times. So we did some dance shows often for tourists.
Little jobs.
And we would get paid for that. And I also got paid once for singing. That was a pretty big thing. I sang at somebody's wedding. When I was about 15, I think. So that was pretty cool. It's the first time and only time I've ever been paid for singing. Speaking of which, what was your very first paid job?
My very first paid job was babysitting when I was probably around 13, 14. And it was my first ever job getting paid. I felt so official. I went to the house. It was 2 little girls and parents left to go for dinner. And about an hour in, the dog started giving birth to puppies.
Well, that's something you know how to do.
Yep. Yeah.
Probably more than looking after kids.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first ever paid job, babysitting. What about you?
The first time I ever got paid for doing something was, I'm just going to read it as I've written it down, a knitting pattern magazine model. So when I was about 11, maybe, somebody I knew was my age and she was going to model for this magazine that was for knitting patterns. So she was going to model in these little cardigans. And I happened to meet with her the night before to go to Feria, to go to the fair, the local fair. And the people that she was going to work for were with her. And they had a word with my mum and they said, could you bring her do you think you could bring her tomorrow to, and I remember, oh my God, I also have a story. I remember they plaited my hair because they wanted my hair to be wavy the next day. And my mum was cringing the whole time because I had knits at that time.
Oh,
so
no.
She was praying. So we'd spent like a week
trying to get rid of them.
Try and get rid of knits because you get them and then they're really hard to get rid of, right?
Yeah.
So we were,
especially we always had really long hair as well, so it's even harder.
So I did some modeling. I don't think they noticed I had knits. So I did some modeling for these
I
knitting
remember seeing
patterns.
that catalogue. That's hilarious.
And I think I got about
Amazing.
€120 for 2 days of modeling. And I went and spent it on Mum took me to the toy shop and I spent it on a Play-Doh cooking set.
Of course. Of course. I mean, big up your mom that she let you spend on whatever you want.
100%. That is so cool.
That is so cool. That is so cool. What's a job you've done down that route that people wouldn't expect?
So this is slightly less exciting, but I don't think anybody really knows. I did some translating for coursework of a teacher. So at the French school I was at, a teacher that was teaching management, she asked me to translate her coursework from French to English. So I did that and got paid a bit. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I've got down 2 because I wasn't too sure. Because I guess when you've done it, you're like, it doesn't seem surprising. I've got teach English to young kids. That's basically how I earn extra money at uni. I would go and like play with kids, but in English, and then they would go like really young kids. And then I've also put modeling, which I did a little bit of, which is a really, like, I'm sure at some point we'll get into it, but it was a really funny story how me and literally like my whole family, including horses, modeled for this company. So yeah.
That's so funny. Isn't it funny that we've both done things to do with the languages we speak?
Yes, taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. Probably one of the hardest to answer. If you could swap jobs with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Right. I thought about this for days and days, and I could not think. Like, I had so many ideas. So I kept kind of coming back to a more of a concept rather than like a job or a specific person. If I could swap places with anybody for a day, I would love to be an inspirational speaker. So the kind of person that has so much knowledge about something that they're asked to do TED Talks or give a conference, and to be able to inspire people to do either to live slightly differently or to go and do that thing, or maybe it's a particular subject that I'm very knowledgeable on. That's something that I would really love. And the other thing I thought was to be a tour guide for an extreme sport. So I do a lot of mountaineering, I do some canyoning. I've sometimes thought in the past, what would it be like to work as a mountain guide or something like that. And if we're doing it for only a day, I think I would really enjoy that. So that's what I'm going to say.
Totally. I've got quite out there answers. I mean, one's kind of to do with one of the answers I gave before. So I put backup dancer and I put Taylor Swift or any big artist with big performances. Because the idea with Taylor Swift is her concerts are like such shows. So like just anyone who has like a show, anyone like that has, that their concerts like, wow. Or Cirque du Soleil performer.
Oh, that's so cool.
What
would you do?
Literally only came to mind because my mum and I watched the documentary of Cirque du Soleil the other day.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's so good. And it does just make you want to be able to be that in control of your body. Like it must just be so cool. And like a show like that like moves people so much. I just thought, that would be so cool.
Do you know which would be your speciality? Which direction would you bend?
No.
How high would you fly?
I have no idea. I mean, I would be up for trying all of it, to be honest. I think anything that's a bit more dancey, I guess, I just feel like I would gravitate towards. But maybe that's just like comfort zone, and maybe I should go for something totally out there.
My mum did some circus training.
Did she?
When I was really young.
She also did parkour, didn't she?
She did do parkour. She's
well-rounded.
an inspiration for us all.
Yeah, she really is.
I hope she listens to this podcast.
Yeah. Well, we are bigging up parents a lot, so hopefully they'll give us a listen. Would your younger self be surprised by your current career choice?
I don't think they would. Or they. She. It.
It's.
I. I don't think I would be particularly surprised. I feel like it's a good combination of things that I'd hoped for. And when you're a kid, you imagine the person you will be rather than maybe your exact job. And I think I found a pretty good balance between the things that, or the kind of person that I hoped I would be. So maybe I would be surprised or just kind of happy, Damn, you did it. Well done.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I've put yes in a great way just because as I was so set on like science route, I think if I did know, not so much like having my own business, I think that I would pretty much, like you say, like expect and be like, you did that. But the fact that it's in branding, I think I would have been like, what even is that? Like, what? How? How'd
Tell
you
me
get
more.
there? Yeah, totally. So I think, yes, I would be surprised, but like in a really cool way. Like, really. And last one. If you could give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
So I would tell myself that you can make it in any industry if you try hard enough. So you might as well choose something that you'll enjoy trying hard for.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I put no decision you make now is forever. You can change your mind at any time, and that's okay. I remember the pressure of what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
When you're 16 and you're like, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. So to like take that like pressure away, I'd be like, whatever you do now, if you decide you don't want to do it and you want to do something else, you can change your mind. It's good. It's fine.
That's so cool. I think if we combine these two, we should send little letters to everybody in that year, that critical year before university.
Totally.
Maybe they'll listen to the pod.
Yeah. Right. So now we're going to do a little to make it, a bit quicker. We're going to do a little game.
Ooh.
Most likely to. I'm actually so excited for this. We have no idea what the questions are. Shout out to our producer, Melina, who prepared the questions for us. Right. Who's most likely to? So do you want to start? Like, we'll do one question each.
Okay. How are we so we're going to use each other's nicknames.
Yes.
So we'll both answer at the same time, whether we think it's Bean or Chon.
Yeah.
How should I maybe do the first 5 and you do the second 5?
Yeah, that's a good way to do
it. It's a bit.
Yeah.
So, forget to reply to an email for days, Chon. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I
was, dude.
I'm sorry. I was going to say Chon, and then I thought, actually, I don't think you would either. But yeah.
I do sometimes.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, so, accidentally CC the wrong person on a confidential email.
Bean.
Oh. Maybe. Yeah, okay, Bean.
I've accidentally, more than CC'd, I've accidentally replied all instead of replying to one person.
Bean.
Yeah.
That's such a
It's
classic.
never been too bad, but it's been not great. Yeah. Anyway, next.
Survive the longest in a meeting with no coffee. Bean. Come up with an amazing idea in the shower, but forget it immediately.
Chon.
Over prepare for a presentation.
Bean. If this podcast
over preparing for this podcast.
Yes. Yep. Right. Wing an important meeting and somehow pull it off.
Bean.
I'm gonna say Bean. Be the first one to suggest after work drinks. I feel that we're both.
Yeah, I think we both.
Yeah. Say let's circle back to avoid answering a question, Chon.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Turn their camera off in a Zoom meeting to eat snacks.
Chon.
Oh, I was going to say Bean. We both think ourselves amazing. Take on too much work and regret it later. Bean. Nice. That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, we should have somehow kept score. I think it was pretty equal though.
Yeah, I think we're pretty in agreement.
Yeah. Right. And now I think we're gonna do a little just kind of overview of where we are now. I think this you can keep it shorter than the rest, but we will be talking about this so much just in and out in other episodes. But yeah, a little bit more of where we are today. We've talked about it more in a career sense, but on a personal level. Um, so I will go first.
Go for it.
I was living in Malaga up until June 2023, where I was getting kicked out of my apartment because of rental things for summer. And I decided that it was now or never to take advantage and do work on a dream that I'd always wanted to do, which was camper van life. So I decided to move back home in June of 2023 and convert a camper van with my dad. So we spent all of that summer looking for the perfect van. We found one in September of 2023 and basically spent the next year, which is, it's crazy. Like that feels so recent and yet it's like already coming up to 2 years, madness. But we spent a year converting this van. And in September 2024, I set off for a little European road trip. And it was the exact same time that I was hiring my first employee. And that was because I was at a point with the studio that I was ready to the parts that I wasn't a big fan of, which is social media. Spoiler alert. I could get someone else to come and do that. And it was just a good time so that I could focus a bit more on the traveling to lighten my workload. I traveled for 5.5 months, England, Scotland, Portugal, north of Spain, France, Switzerland to see a certain someone, Italy and islands. And I came back home about a month and a half ago to refocus a little bit on work and just put the van through the technical vehicle inspection, I think is the way that everyone will understand. And I'm back home now for a couple of months focusing on work, and I plan to leave again in May of this year for another couple of months.
Can I take the chance to plug your YouTube channel?
Yes,
Follow her on Terra Trotter.
Terra Trotter. I think the YouTube might be Terra Trotter Van Life, but
Go check out Terra Trotter Van Life.
Yeah.
You can see the whole van conversion. It's incredible. It's the most luxurious, amazing space that I would move in permanently to.
It is insane.
It's a really cool process to follow from start to finish. So, and
it's a big hats off to my dad. If it wasn't for my dad, there's no way I would have even attempted it. He's always wanted to also travel around in a van. So I said, Dad, I haven't got the money or the knowledge to buy a van and convert it myself. Do you want to go halfsies? And he was like, sure. So that was so fun. And it was also actually really nice to spend time again with my dad that I hadn't done in years. So it was really nice to work on a project together. So yeah, big hats off to him to how amazing the van did turn out.
Aww. And we know he loves his podcast, so maybe he'll be listening.
Yeah, hopefully.
Love you, Paul.
Or Bob to you.
Bob. Love you, Bob.
Okay.
Brilliant.
What about you?
So I'm currently living in Switzerland, as I have been for the last 3 years. I have my little apartment here. I work full time. And I'm a bit of an outdoor enthusiast. So I do a lot of outdoor sport. I'm big into hiking, a bit of mountaineering, a bit of climbing. I'm actually going climbing tomorrow.
Love it.
I'm going to go along I don't know what the word is in English. Like a top of a mountain. Along the top of a mountain. A pointy mountain.
Oh, I know what you mean, but I don't know.
I think in Spanish it would probably cresta. Anyway,
the crest.
Yeah, maybe. I like doing outdoor stuff, and I actually recently, so at the end of last year in December, I went on what I'm going to call a life-changing trip. I went
100%
solo backpacking to Argentina and Chile. So I did some volunteering at a horse ranch in Patagonia, and I did some backpacking to travel around afterwards. And it was the most incredible experience ever that we could possibly get into detail at some point, because I learned a lot about myself and about the world and my priorities and everything. So I'm fresh off of that, and I'm now deep into so many creative projects I'm really enjoying, and I feel like I'm doing so much more time-wise and energy-wise than I have in the past, but I feel like it's giving me energy rather than taking it away. So I'm in a very cool place, and I'm very excited about this podcast and the episodes to come.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, should we talk about how it came about?
Literally, I was just thinking that, because it kind of happened when we first talked about it, was just when you got back from Argentina.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. So we were having a chat because while you were in Argentina, you didn't have basically any service or internet or anything.
Communication method.
No. Yeah, you were off doing your
Off-grid.
little retreat. And detox, and not that you need it, but you were doing your little detox. And I about 2 weeks in, since when you'd been away, I had this really weird, like, lucid dream, I'm going to call it, which happened when we were on a ferry in the van, going between, I think it was Sicily and Sardinia, the islands, Italian islands. And it was a 12-hour ferry ride, which I have never been on a ferry before. I've only been on a ferry to go to the UK from mainland Europe. So it's an hour and a half. So this was our first time. Like, we had a little cabin. It was cool, but we were not prepared for the sickness, for the seasickness. So we were like, one thing that will make it go faster and like pass quicker is if we try and sleep. So I was trying to sleep, and I just had this, like I say, I wasn't asleep because I just wasn't, but I had this like lucid dream of doing a podcast with Saoirse that was focused on talking about work. Like, that's like as far as I got. So we were having a conversation. We had a call because we hadn't spoken in weeks. And I suddenly remembered, I was like, oh, I've got to tell you, I had this weird dream. And I'll let you carry on.
So she started telling me about this idea she'd had in a dream about this podcast, and that she was thinking of maybe it could be a thing. And I just said to her, stop talking. I got out my phone and I showed her a note that I had on my phone, kind of randomly, of a list of people that I wanted to interview in a very similar setup. So we'd basically kind of come to this conclusion that we wanted to do something like this. I hadn't put it into the podcast word
Format.
terms, but I knew I wanted to create something where I get the input of people about the working world. And I've had so many interesting conversations, and it's something that I'm so interested in talking about. And I feel like I talk about for hours, like we have been doing now for, I mean, we're not really talking about work that much, but anyway, it's something that, that I think, I mean, I feel the passion about it. And I think it's so interesting to have input from different people in different situations. And I'd made a list of people that I really wanted to interview. And I said to her, we've come to the same conclusion. We have to do this.
Absolutely. Like, I think years ago we were like, oh, it would be so cool to do a podcast together. But we were like, yeah, but what of? Like, and like, that was like the end of that conversation, you know? And then this was just like appeared, like literally. And we were like, we've got to do this. We like, it's crazy that at the same time-ish, we've had such a similar idea. So let's do it.
That's how it came. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So that's the plan. The idea is to talk about everything work-wise, all the different subjects that we're interested in, get as many outside inputs as possible, get as many different people with different careers, talk about what all the words mean, what even is a career.
Talk about all of it, all the aspects that, especially the ones that we feel that we've had to kind of figure out by ourselves, that we didn't feel like there was a space to talk about that kind of stuff, that when you feel like it's just, is it just you? Is it, you know, is anyone else feeling this way? We've had recently as well, we've had so many people, we've had conversations with so many people that we know where they're feeling the exact same way that we have at some point. And they're feeling so lost, and just like nobody else is feeling that way. And where can they even get the advice? So we thought we would create that platform.
So that's the plan. And something I would love also would be to turn it into as much of a community as possible. So make it possible for people to ask questions and talk about their dilemmas or their situations and get advice from people that are external to their situation. Yeah. and give them
Absolutely.
advice or tell funny stories and feel a little bit less alone in the working world. So that's
Exactly. Feel like, yeah, somebody else understands what they're going through and has maybe even been there as well and can give feedback, advice, whatever. And yeah, like you say, feel a little bit less alone. So our name of the podcast is We Will Manage. A little play on words that Saoirse came up with. And the community we want to, I don't even know, create, host, I don't even know what the word would be, is the Workplace Collective. We want it to be, the dream is for it to not just be us two discussing crazy things on mics. We want it to be a conversation. And yeah, we're just figuring it out along the way as well, and could do with advice in a lot of, we're not claiming to be experts at all. We're also just learning. So we want to learn together.
So yeah, follow us. Join the journey. Thank you so much for listening to our first episode.
Yes.
And maybe join us next time for our first deep dive on a big topic, which is networking. Absolutely. Our idea is to make this first season all about the human element inside of the workplace. We want to divide this podcast into seasons, and we just thought starting with the human side was just a way to come up with a lot of different stories. I think there's a lot of different topics to cover here, and we wanted to start with networking. So we'll see you there.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow this podcast if you enjoyed it, if you think you might be able to stand
Maybe leave a little comment. Tell us what you think.
Maybe leave a little comment. Maybe let us know what you would like us to talk about in future episodes. And yeah, we do have lots of different socials everywhere. We will manage. We have
a producer. Maybe. She's brilliant.
Yeah, she's in charge of all of that. So yeah, that's us. See you soon.